Hello everyone and welcome to video 4 of our 4-part watercolor pencil series. I'm Karen from Close to My Heart and I have so enjoyed spending time with you sharing my very favorite coloring medium of colored pencils, and today we have some surprise things that you can do with pencils that don't involve coloring images. Now, before we get started on that, I just want to remind you that you're going to want to like, subscribe, and turn on that bell notification here on YouTube so that you don't miss a single one of our Close to My Heart videos. Now, I have some beautiful art here in front of me that I think that you're going to see some fun details on. There's a little bit of splattering happening around this piece of art, and I wanted you to see it first a little bit at a distance, and then we're going to look at some of this close up. So you can see this beautiful 12 by 12 single page, some splattering happening, and from this angle that you're looking at it now, you probably see some of these large splatters. I'm going to bring this over where you can see it close up because you're going to see all of this fun detail, some really tiny little splatters that are lighter, and all of this was achieved with colored pencils. I'm going to show you a couple of other examples before I show you how to do them. So you see splattering here on this gorgeous piece of art. Now I'm going to bring in some of the art that we created on some of our earlier videos. You can see on this one, there's some background happening here. There's a little bit of splattering around the edges, but what's happening right behind the flowers is what I want you to pay attention to. That's something totally different than splattering. We're going to do the splattering and this, which we like to call smushing, and I'm going to show you two different ways to smush. So I'm going to grab some white cardstock so that I have just a clean base to be able to demonstrate a few of these examples on. I'm also grabbing one of our acrylic blocks that you would normally put a stamp on and then ink it up and stamp it onto something, but we're going to use that for something totally different today. I also just grabbed some plastic packaging. This is a package that one of our adhesive runners came out of, but you probably have plastic packaging around your house that you could use. And I'm actually just going to cut this apart a little bit so that I have a nice flat piece of plastic. It doesn't have to be any perfect shape or size. You're going to see how fun it is to use to do a couple of fun techniques. So I've got everything I want right here. I need my colored pencils. And I'm going to move my art out of the way so I don't get any of that stuff on this beautiful art, but I'll bring it in to show you as I demonstrate each of these techniques. And you can see it as I demonstrated and then also on a piece of art. All right, let's start with doing some splattering. I'm going to take a colored pencil and my water brush. In our last video, we talked about how to color by taking your water brush and picking that color up from the tip of your pencil and coloring. So that's what I just showed you right there. What we're going to do now is take a bunch of color from the tip of this pencil and just take that color and our water brush and put it right on our block. And I'm just creating kind of like a puddle of ink and wet pencil, water and wet pencil, I guess. I'm going to add a little more water to it just by squeezing my water brush. And now I have a puddle to work with. I'm going to just take it and flick it off my block with my brush onto my paper. And you can see it's naturally making some splatters that are a little bigger, some splatters that are a little bit smaller. Now let's say I wanted a bigger splatter than what I got. I could actually take my water brush with some of that ink from my block and carefully, straight up and down, touch my paper and create a little bit of a splatter there. You wouldn't want to do this for everything that you're creating with your splatters because then they would all just look about the same. But if you create on a piece of art like the one that I showed you, some splattering and wanted a bigger splatter, then you could go in and add that with some ink that you pulled off your block with your brush. and get a larger splatter like you can see what I'm creating right here. Isn't that fun? You can see we got some of that really soft splattering that you can see happening right here. We got some of those larger splatters, kind of, well, I guess more medium-sized splatters, and then we created our own large splatter just by putting color from the tip of our pencil onto a block and flicking it off, just like you see me doing here. So that is the splattering. You saw it in this gorgeous 12 by 12 page. You also can see a little bit of very light splattering happening in the background of this ice cream page card. And you can see some just lightly around the edges of this card. Now, we talked about the smushing. I'm going to show you two different ways to smush. Who knew that the word smush was a technique, right? So let's go back to our pencil and our block. Let's start adding more color. And all I'm going to do is take my block, now that I've got that ink on it, I'm going to turn it, I'm going to stamp with it, and I'm going to put it onto my paper. And as I do that, watch what happens. That ink just kind of smushes down onto that paper. And if I move it around a little bit, my block, I can play with the effect a little bit and move some of that color around so that I get a really organic looking smush, kind of like what is behind that flower right there. In fact, I'm using the exact same color that I used on this card. It's just darker here because it's not dry yet. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Things are going to look a little darker as they go onto whatever it is you're creating. And then as they dry, they'll lighten up just a little bit. Now, I told you, I promised you a third way to smush. So I'm going to pull in, get rid of my Versamat here and pull in my all-purpose mat and that packaging, that plastic packaging that I talked about at the beginning. And this is just an all-purpose mat that is, I think, a basic craft tool. It's something that wipes up really easily, and so when you use it, you don't have to worry about it getting on other things. So I'm just going to do what we had done on our block right here on this all-purpose mat, so that I have a little bit more space to work with than a block. And I'm adding a little water and moving it around a little bit to create a puddle of pencil and water, just like we've been doing. But this time, I'm going to take my packaging, trying to see how I can fit all of this in here for you. And I'm just going to kind of mush it up in my hand so that it's kind of a ball. I'm going to pick up this color with that packaging, this ink, and I'm just going to start moving it around a little bit on my paper. This is also called smushing, but it's just done a little bit differently. Now you can see just by touching it, I'm getting small areas of color and dots, but I could take it and push it a little harder and turn a little bit here and there so that I get a little more color and a little less definition. You can kind of just do whatever look you want, and maybe you want one look in one area, another look in another area. I can even imagine this little piece that I've just created, stamping something on it and cutting it out and having that really organic look in the background, or even using this piece that I've just created, letting it dry and writing journaling on that and adding that to a scrapbook page. So lots of fun ways to use all of this smushing that is happening today and the splattering, and yet another reason to have watercolor pencils. I think I said in video number 3 that if I just had to choose one coloring medium and couldn't use anything else, I would choose watercolor pencils. And I think if you've been following this series with us, you'll agree that watercolor pencils are so versatile and can be used in so many different ways to get lots of different looks. Now, if you've enjoyed what you've seen today and like some of the products you see, you'll want to make sure you check down below because we've linked all of our products. In fact, we've done that in all 4 of our videos just for your convenience and being able to get some of the supplies you may want to have after learning from these videos. I hope you've enjoyed this series. I've sure enjoyed it with you and want to thank you for joining me.